There's our topic. And this is a continuation of where we left off this morning. And it's a bridge into the topic we're going to be discussing all next week. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. Those of you that are a little familiar with Nectar of Devotion, you know that there's 64 items of devotional service, and at the end of those 64 items, Rupa Goswami summarizes the purpose of all these is one thing. This one. It's to remember Krishna, and with the injunction to remember Krishna, never forget him. Injunction, prohibition. From chanting, we discussed this morning many things, but the awakening of the dormant desire to be in service to Krishna, because we're constitutionally servants, we're going to serve someone. But our service to Krishna is forgotten, and so we're serving others, or other purposes, or other causes, or something, practically anything other than Krishna. So we're serving Maya, other than Krishna consciousness. And chanting awakens the desire to be in Krishna's service. So that's not sometimes, because we're constitutionally servants, therefore always remember Krishna. Always remember the person who we're serving. That's love. It's not possible to where does the mind go? The mind goes to what you're attached to. So as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam, whatever you smaran, whatever you remember at the time of death, that's where you're going to go. In fact, it's not just at the time of death, it's moment to moment. Where the mind goes is where you go. So it's important to remember Krishna, and always remember Krishna. So there's three parts to this short presentation. It's why is it important? And what does it look like? And how to get there. Those are the three parts for this morning. Mm-hmm. It's not advancing. Hello? It's not moving. I'm hitting the buttons and it's not moving. I'm not trying the remote, just hitting the forward button. It's not going forward. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. Technology is nice when it works. It's a little frustrating when it doesn't. Whoa, okay. It works now? Look at that. I'll try it. Well, let's go backwards and see if it works. All right. Yay. Better late than never, right? Okay. So, here's a person, Srila Prabhupada, who knew the way of always remembering Krishna. That we discussed it indirectly. What you're attached to is where your thoughts go. What's really important to you, that's where your thoughts go. So if Krishna becomes really important to you, because other things are now important, Krishna's somewhere in there, but other things are really important to us. So our mind goes to those other things. But the always remember Krishna is possible when Krishna is really important to you, or you're attached to Krishna. So there's stages. We discussed this yesterday, the unsteady bhakti, and on the other side of unsteady bhakti is steady bhakti. We touched on that in the Shikshastakam number 1. And from steady, nishtha, quickly it moves. There's a taste for the name and for the activity of chanting, like some persons were expressing. Time was just passing, and there was a happiness, a contentment. I felt light, and so that's not like, okay, now you've reached the ruchi stage, but that's just a resemblance of, a reflection of what's beyond the unsteady bhakti stage. And then from taste comes attachment, and then it moves very quickly. Ecstasy, and then mixing of ecstasies is prema. So the association with such a person as our founder Acharya gives us at least the possibility, the potential of coming to those higher stages of bhakti. He wanted us to do that. He gave his association to all kinds of people, even incorrigible people, even Mayavadi sannyasis and little school kids in the schoolyard, and anybody and everybody. Very, very liberal in giving his association. And he gave us, of course, Bhagavad Gita, as it is. And so I'm going to spend some time next on chapter 8, some series of verses on chapter 8 Bhagavad Gita. The title of chapter 8 Bhagavad Gita is what? Title of chapter 8 Bhagavad Gita is what? Attaining the Supreme, right. Very good. So, in attaining the Supreme, that mindfulness of Krishna is essential. Remembering Krishna is essential. Bringing the mind from other things to Krishna is essential to attain Krishna. Because whatever you remember at the time of death, that's what you attain. So we practice. Here's some verses in Bhagavad Gita. This is a methodology. We're going to go back to verse 5, but text 9, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person. He gives different ways. As the one who knows everything. As he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental is beyond this material nature. This was one of the favorite verses of the now departed Mahavishnu Goswami, the elder. Some of you may know him, Gujarati elder, very elder Vaishnava. And I heard him speak on this verse like 3 days in a row. He would take each of these items and take one item and go more deeply, and then go more deeply, and then go more deeply, and then come back up for air, and then take the next one and go more deeply and go more deeply. And it became clear hearing him that it wasn't just an academic appreciation of the verse. It's something that he regularly did, because it's an imperative or an injunction. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person. In these different ways. Now, largely, this is describing Vishnu feature. Smaller than the smallest, the maintainer of everything, etc. And then finally, the personal conception, always a person, beyond this material nature. So these are ways, or an injunction of how to meditate upon Krishna. Then we'll go back, verse 6. Whatever state of being, we've mentioned this twice already, whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chachat ante kalevaram ante kalevaram. With the end, kalevaram, absolutely. There's not an exception. You attain that state where your mind is. Then the next, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty. In his case, it's fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you'll attain me. That follows from the previous verse. What the mind is fixed on, you'll attain that. So it's not just fix your mind upon Krishna in a cave somewhere, in solitary situation, but right in the middle of the workplace or the battlefield or school or whatever. It's a duty that you give to Krishna, and the mind is with Krishna. He who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, O Partha, is sure to reach me. The chapter is attaining the Supreme. So 8, 6, 7, and 8. You'll attain me, you'll attain me, you'll attain me. Without a doubt, you'll attain me. But the mind is essential to be part of attaining Krishna. I would say it conversely. You won't attain Krishna if you don't have your mind fixed upon Krishna. Now I skipped a verse. We'll come back to text 9. Text 10. One who, at the time of death, fixes his life air between the eyebrows. I don't know how to do that. And in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord, will certainly attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is describing from chapter 6 the Ashtanga Yoga system. So it's not excluded. You can be an Ashtanga yogi and at the same time in your heart or in your mind devoted to the Supreme, if that's what's given to you to do by your spiritual master, given the time, place, and circumstance. So the external is less important, the internal is what's important. If you remember from our discussion about Bhakti Vinod, chanting has its external, that's what your lips and the tongue do, and then there's the internal. What your intention is, what your purpose is, what your mind is. So the lips and the tongue can be making a sound, your mind can be in the gutter or somewhere else. Text 14, big letters. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So here, in one sense, sounds like Krishna is equating remembering him with devotional service. Or say it in reverse order, if one is engaged in constant devotional service, the mind is going to be upon Krishna. Not just activity, but devotional activity, with devotion. Then you become attached to the person who you're serving. There's this grammatical language, subject-object, and in between is a verb. So we're the subject, and Krishna is the object. In the language of Rupa Goswami, we're the abode of love, and Krishna is the object of love. We're the subject and Krishna is the object. And if the subject, that's us, are always remembering Krishna without deviation, what does that look like? It's devotional service. It's constant engagement in devotional service. We'll say it the other way around. Prabhupada would say like this, book distribution. If you're distributing Krishna's book, then you have to think of Krishna, because it's Krishna's book. Or if you're engaged in, you get the idea, cooking in the kitchen for Krishna. Of course, you can cook in the kitchen and mind's in a bad place, angry at somebody or lusty or contemplating how you're going to get honor and praise for cooking so nicely, or grumbling because I have to be here in the kitchen and it's hot, or something. The mind can be not in a good place. But if the mind is, if it's constant engagement in devotional service, then the mind is with Krishna. Now, what happens when there's difficulty? It's too hot or too cold or something. So, if one doesn't practice, this is Prabhupada speaking in relation to always remembering Krishna. If one doesn't practice remembering Krishna while one is struggling for existence, then it will not be possible for one to remember Krishna at the time of death. Ante kalevaram. In this world, there is duality. Sometimes and sometimes. Sometimes this, sometimes that. Sometimes things are going well, good fortune. Sometimes things are going poorly, bad fortune. And there's a mix, sometimes and sometimes. But always there's some kind of a struggle, because even if things are going well, we know, wait a while, something else is going to start happening. So it's a struggle. Daivihi gunamayi mama maya darachaya. We need to remember Krishna while that struggle is going on, because we're certainly not going to remember Krishna when everything is finished. Nothing works. I had this experience in Vrindavan. The guest house was filled, so they had some of us stay in Fogel Ashram. Now they have screens and other things, but then there weren't screens, so there was a lot of mosquitoes. And I remember one night getting bit by a mosquito. I mean, not just one, but remember that particular one, it was thinking, uh-oh, I hope he doesn't have malaria, or carrying malaria. And sure enough, he got malaria. And what happens when you get malaria is, one of the things that happens is the faculty of the mind doesn't work properly. So I was shifted, diagnosed with malaria, to the guest house, and I was told, drink lots of water. You have high fever, so drink lots of water. It'll help flush your system. So I was drinking water, and what happens when you drink a lot of water? You have to pass water. So I'm lying in bed, seeing the door. It was in an attached bathroom. I'm looking at the door, and I couldn't get my mind to function, to get up, walk across the room, and answer the call of nature. My mind wouldn't work, and I had this stark realization, my God. Not even you have to figure it out, you just answer the call of nature. It's one of the things that you don't have to think about. But I couldn't, my mind wasn't working. And I was thinking, right at that moment, what's going to happen at the time of death? Everything stops. The things that you normally just count on, they don't work. We're relying heavily on things that are just kind of happening because Supersoul maintains them. But if Supersoul withdraws that maintenance, you're discombobulated. You can't function. And besides, it's painful, and the temperature rises, and there's nothing you can do. Nothing works. you can't even reach out to something that you're used to having there when you reach out, like answer the call of nature. So, if you can't do that in times of adversity, then what's going to happen at the time of death? But we have our role model over here. Prahlad Maharaj. Can you take away that little tab in the lower right-hand side? Because I can't remove it. It says your computer is shared by universe. No, this thing over here. Oh. What'd you do? Oh, I see what you did. Okay. So, no. Put it back. Okay. We'll go full screen. Go full screen. We'll just tolerate it. Can you go full screen? Okay. So it says Vishnu underneath that little tab. Prahlad, he was facing difficulty. More than difficulty, he was facing torture and attempted murder. I mean, explicit attempted murder. He did it. Okay, so it's not only in good times, or it's not only in bad times, but it's all the time. When he had the opportunity up the upper left-hand corner to speak with his classmates, he took the opportunity. And over on the right-hand side, when he had the opportunity to see Lord Nrsingadev face to face, he took the opportunity. And then in between is the difficulty. So he's the Acharya for always remembering. That was the perfection, isn't it? There's 9 stages of bhakti and Vishnu Smaranam, that's Prahlad, always remembering. And in that mood of remembrance, he offered his prayers. He offered his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev on the right-hand side, but even before he saw Lord Nrsingadev, he was offering his prayers to Lord Vishnu, because he was fully dependent upon Lord Vishnu. He was attached to Lord Vishnu. He got that attachment to Lord Vishnu from Narada Muni through the medium of devotional service. And so he was teaching devotional service to his friends, upper left. He knew there would be consequences, and sure enough, there were consequences. But that didn't deviate him from his compassion to his friends and doing what he knew was sensible. So this is Prabhupada speaking. It's written in Beyond Birth and Death, but he's speaking on this 8:14 Bhagavad Gita. Smarati nityashaha, continuous remembrance. And for one who is continuously remembering Krishna, the Lord becomes tasyaham sulabha, easily purchased. Krishna himself says that he is easily purchased by this bhakti yoga process. Now, it's not like he's some commodity and you purchase him. Now he's yours. But it's a love, and the love in devotion is Krishna becomes attracted, or he becomes purchased by that love. He gives himself to one who loves him. He likes the bhakti yoga process. He likes us to engage in the bhakti yoga process, like some discussion this morning. How do we know that Krishna is liking what we're doing? Bhakti yoga process rightly followed. And a standard of are we doing it right is how much are we remembering him, continuous remembrance. Even if we're not there yet, if we're in this mixed state, if we're trying to continuously remember Krishna, it's going to help you remember Krishna. And when you detect, here's something that's taking my mind away from Krishna and more in a selfish way, either personal or extended selfishness, then we'll detect that too, because we want to remember Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada speaking on the Bhagavatam process of Draupadi, by her, she was in danger, she was in difficulty. And so she tried, Dushasana's trying to disrobe her, so she was holding on to her cloth to try to prevent him from disrobing her. And he was stronger, so she was losing. And so she knew it was hopeless. And so she, in that state of difficulty, terrible, disgraceful situation, she, as Prabhupada said, she raised both arms and prayed, Krishna, if you like, you can save me. Of course, Krishna liked, and he saved her. Or, in that relation, Prabhupada also speaks of Draupadi. She was in danger. And what to do. Durvasa Muni has come and with his 60,000 followers, and he's hungry, and his followers are hungry, and they're expecting, and if we don't get what they're expecting, Durvasa Muni is going to do the Durvasa Muni program, and we'll have a problem. Krishna. So he came and solved the problem. You know the story. Some little spinach inside the pot. She said, I cleaned the pot. Give me the pot. Give me the spinach from the inside the pot, please. And because of her love, Krishna was pleased with that little offering of some spinach left on the inside of the pot, and because he was pleased, Durvasa Muni felt full because Krishna was pleased. She was protected by that dangerous position that she was in. It was all arranged by Duryodhana. You know the story. Now, here's this principle. That was Bhagavad Gita's message, and expanding a little bit on Bhagavad Gita's message of always remember Krishna even in difficulty. So now comes the principle mentioned already in Nectar Devotion, but it comes from Padma Purana, Smartavya Satatam Vishnur Vismartavyo Najata Chit. So, according to the Padma Purana, the sum and substance of all regular principles of the scripture is that Lord Vishnu or Krishna should always be remembered and should never be forgotten. We should therefore mold our lives in such a way that in every activity we shall be able to remember the Supreme Lord. And then, in bold letters, any activity that reminds one of the Supreme Lord is a regular principle in devotional service. And any activity that makes one forget the Supreme Lord is a forbidden activity for a devotee. I'm thinking of the early days of the Hare Krishna movement when Prabhupada understood the young people that he was addressing, their three pillars of Maya were drugs, illicit sex, and rock and roll. And the devotees wanted to do rock and roll for Krishna. Or do drugs and think of Krishna. And he said, no, you may think it may help you remember Krishna, but it's sinful. Sinful isn't going to help you remember Krishna. So it's not whimsical, think of Krishna. It's because that's not sustainable. It's not really thinking of Krishna. It's not thinking of Krishna's interest and Krishna's welfare and Krishna's happiness. That's what thinking of Krishna means. There's standard personalities, great souls, Mahajans and Acharyas that teach us, Rupa and Sanatan, for example. They were given a place of residence in Vrindavan. They were given some service in Vrindavan. And in fulfilling their service, they were always thinking of Krishna, like this nice illustration shows. Or the prostitute, after she became purified by just hearing the chanting of Haridas, she then became absorbed as Haridas was absorbed, and always remembering the personality of Godhead through the medium of chanting as she was following Haridas. Bilvamangala Thakur, previously he was fond of a prostitute. Although he was an elevated, learned person, he had this weakness. And the prostitute told him in the dead of night one night, without all the detail, if only you had as much attachment for Krishna as you have for this body, this temporary bag. If you only had that much attachment for Krishna, you'd be a pure devotee. And so he understood. His spiritual master, Somagiri, was speaking through the prostitute, and he left the place immediately. Went to Vrindavan and lived for a long time. Although blind, showing here, Krishna would sit and listen to him because he was singing with such devotion and love. And our Srila Prabhupada, although when crossing the Jaladuta, he had heart attack, Krishna didn't forget him. He was always engaged in remembering Krishna, and Krishna came and protected him and benedicted him. So now the last part, just some tips or ways of remembering Krishna. There's many, they're not difficult. One of the ways of remembering Krishna is found in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the opulences of Krishna, such as Krishna's beauty, or his being the source of beauty. Remember, practically the first week I was living in a temple, 1970, somebody repeated, they had asked Prabhupada, when you see a beautiful sunset, is it okay? Appreciate the beauty of a beautiful sunset, or the shape and the fragrance of a rose? Simple things of life. And Prabhupada said, of course. And you should think, how wonderful is my Krishna? So something that you see that's beautiful, Krishna is the source of that beauty. The gopis, at a very elevated stage, not just seeing sunsets or roses, they saw their beloved Krishna. They concealed to the external world their love for Krishna, but amongst themselves and before Krishna, they were unreserved. But the holding Krishna as one's beloved is an elevated way of always remembering him. And just our having Vaishnava attire, it helps us remember and helps others remember Krishna. And I can say that for sure from every now and then I get on an airplane, and not all the time people will remark, but certainly I can tell by the eyes of people that they're noticing. I'm dressed a little differently than they are. And they don't know necessarily what it is, but they know it has something to do with God. So I'm just helping to put remembrance of God in their mind just by dressing in a dhoti or in devotional clothes. And it's not too often, it's much less often, but people will ask about tilak. And they generally it's polite. I can't remember an impolite way of asking, do you mind if I ask what's that mark on your forehead? And I enjoy answering the question. The answer that I was trained is, it marks the body as a temple of God. Commonly they say, oh, that's nice. Then if they don't run away, you can say, just like, this is Prabhupada, just like a church. From a distance, out of all the buildings, there's a cross at the top. Oh, they go, oh yeah, that mark, this is a temple of God. Or a Muslim mosque, there's a mark that's towards the top of the building, and so that's a mosque. And so also our teaching is within this body, God resides in the heart of every living entity. And we're just reminding ourselves and reminding others. The body is a temple of God. Now, most reactions, my experience is, it's in one ear and out the other ear. They go, oh, that's very nice. And it's like, they go on to the next thing. It really doesn't register. But if you have the opportunity, you can say, that means whatever goes into the body, whatever comes out of the body, it must be with respect to, this is the residing place of God. You go, oh, I never thought of it like that. But we respect the body as a place where God resides. So Vaishnavatar is a way of helping. Prasadam is also one of we call our secret weapon or something. If somebody is kind of averse to Krishna, that's okay. Give them prasadam in school or at work or here or there. People become devotees simply from prasadam. Many become devotees simply because of prasadam. And it should be nice prasadam. It can be simple, but it should be nice. Ways of remembering Krishna. Visiting temples. I remember the first time we had a Japa retreat. It was with Badahari and his wife. I'm sure Sri Rupa remembers this, because Kosharupa was one of her dear friends. So we're doing their sharing like we did yesterday afternoon. She said, I've attended many retreats, and generally it's at some remote place. A park or a Buddhist retreat center or something that's, serene, purposefully removed so the cell phones don't work and you can't get distracted by those things. Purposefully. So you're like, it's a retreat. You're cut off from the stuff you usually do. So it was a big, should we do this? Because when people go back to their home, they, Hasti Snan. You get away, get absorbed, and then go back and get, worldly again. Then try to come back and you carry that worldly stuff with you. So it's actually advantage for the people that have come from a distant place, because all your home comforts aren't around anymore. So you have to kind of like, wait till you get back home so you can get comfortable again. Take sannyas, it's really good. But she commented, this is the first time I've attended, it was in Chicago, first time I've attended a Japa retreat in a temple, in a city, instead of in a remote resort kind of place. And it was really good, because here we are chanting our 64 rounds in front of the deities, and I felt a lot of strength that wasn't there when you have a Buddhist retreat center. Although it's peaceful, it's mode of goodness, it's not the form of Krishna. So, Radha Shama Sundara and Krishna in the form of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra and Gaura-Nitai. Mercy is coming. And so these other temples that are shown, Mayapur, Vrindavan, ways of remembering Krishna. Hearing from the scripture, taking part in festivals, and even observing Kadasi is an opportunity for remembering Krishna. Experiencing and expressing feelings of gratitude for even simple things that Krishna supplies, like water and air and things we can't live without. Feelings of gratitude help us remember Krishna. And distress helps us remember Krishna too. especially when we have an understanding that distress is arising from our forgetfulness of Krishna and our relationship with Krishna. Here's Prabhupada on this topic. Bhagavad Gita chapter 8. We already cited this verse. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness and devotional service. Therefore, one should practice Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life. If one wants to achieve success at the end of his life, then the process of remembering Krishna is essential. Therefore, one should constantly, incessantly chant the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So this is ways of remembering Krishna by the Hare Krishna mantra chanting. To remember Krishna, one should chant the Mahamantra. There's the mantra again. Incessantly following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, being more tolerant than the tree, humbler than the grass, and offering all respects to others without requiring respect in return. So, Kirtan, Japa and Kirtan, the holy name, ways of remembering Krishna, especially if we observe this Shikshastaka 3. Chanting the holy name of the Lord immediately renovates the transcendental relationship of the living being with the Supreme Lord. This is an opportunity for us. This is the how to remember Krishna. So many ways of remembering Krishna. One more Bhagavad Gita reference is the conclusion of that chapter 8 section. Ananya Cheta Satatam. Ananya Cheta Satatam Yo. This is wrong. Yo Mam Smarati Nityashaha. Tasyaham Sulabhakparta Nitya Yuktasya Yogina. For one who remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. We saw this before. Prabhupada's purport. A pure devotee cannot forget the Supreme Lord for a moment, and similarly, the Supreme Lord cannot forget his pure devotee for a moment. So that's the essence. This is a relationship. Bhakti is not just what we do, it's a relationship with Krishna and what Krishna does. Krishna remembers his devotee. Krishna reciprocates with the love of his devotee. That's the nature of the person. He's not neutral towards his devotee. He reciprocates with his devotee. Nectar devotion, there's these 5 most outstanding ways of engaging in devotional service through remembrance of him, hearing, chanting, remembering, through associating with devotees, through chanting of the holy name, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, living in a holy place, Vrindavan or Mathura, and serving the deity. So these are all ways of devotional service that will help us to remember Krishna. It's an essential part of devotional service that we remember Krishna. And we can do all these things because they're natural. We can do them all the time. At least remembering Krishna from the time. So tomorrow it's back to work, or for those that are at school soon, and at least back to school and things like that. So there are ways to remember Krishna by the strength of what we've done together. Carry that with you, the remembrance of Krishna. Even, in separation, appreciating the form of the deity. This is something that I heard several times Prabhupada say. When you see the deity in the morning, you take an image in your mind, and throughout the day, you can recall that image in your mind of the deity. So some people are remote, but, technology, you go online and see how the deities are dressed every morning. Or you can attend Mangal Arati in Mayapur every morning, just by Mayapur TV, and you're there, virtually at least. And that impression is there. Then it can stay in the mind, and you call to mind the form of the deity. Take a good look at the deities of Radha Shama Sundar, and when you're driving back to wherever you came from, even if you live in New Jersey, remember the deity form. Remember the association of the devotees. Remember the nice prasadam. Remember the Namayaga, whatever it was, one of your favorite activities. The first time you chanted, 144 rounds. Remember Krishna. Don't think that if you surrender your mind and senses in remembering Krishna, you'll lose. You only lose suffering, or the sources of suffering. That source of suffering is ignoring Krishna. That's what you'll lose. It's not costly. To remember Krishna, it's not costly. To forget Krishna, that you pay a price for that. So, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we're going to explore this topic further in a number of different ways next weekend. But I thought it was a fitting juncture between where we ended class this morning and where we're going next weekend. So any comments or questions? We have the portable microphone. Yeah. Let's go quickly. Up here. Quickly. Can you go quickly? Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah.
One example, like while we are going back to work next week, when we are
looking forward to it, right?
Example, like in a daily basis of the work on crucial projects, when we are thinking, it goes for 4 to 8 hours also. At that point of time, we'll be thinking only on the task, one after the other, where Krishna will not come in between.
No.
How is it possible?
No. If you're attached to Krishna, you'll be thinking of Krishna while you're doing the activity. Who is it? We'll say it a different way. Who is it that you're doing this for? Now, if you were Srila Prabhupada, if you were a pure devotee grihastha, you're working for Krishna. Now, the other fellows ladies and fellows in the workplace that have this product, and there's a project that's going to be launched and all that stuff, they're working for prestige, or the boss, or the team, and all those entities are part of what you're doing, but that's all part of your service to Krishna. Because I'm sure that they know that you're a Krishna Bhakta. They must know because you're you. They've got to know. They come in 50 yards of you and they know that you're a Krishna Bhakta. So now in the workplace, you're helping them to see, here's how one who is a Krishna Bhakta does their work in the workplace. You're thinking, I want to serve and please Krishna and attract people to Krishna, not just by the prasadam and the Bhagavad Gita messages I share with them, but here's how a devotee of Krishna works in the workplace. So at least you can think that way and have the opportunity that you're doing this to attract people to Krishna. In so many ways you can be thinking. In so many ways you can be thinking. It takes practice, but also in the mature stage it takes attachment to Krishna. Then you can't not think of Krishna, even when you have a project deadline. It'll happen. Maybe it's not going to happen next week, but it'll happen. You continue with all the things that you're doing, chanting sessions and Bhagavatam class sessions and this thing and that thing. And the cultivation of bhakti will develop attachment, further and further attachment to Krishna, and detachment from other things. And detachment from other things doesn't mean I went out of the workplace because this place is crazy. I want to show these people, I want to be an example for these people, like Prahlad, sitting with his classmates and telling them about Krishna. You can tell people about Krishna by your character. And people will then ask you, what's going on? We're all stressed out to the max over here, and you're so calm. And anyway, if the qualities of a Krishna Bhakta are within you, it will attract. And even if it doesn't attract, it will attract Krishna. That's how. We want to please Krishna. Doesn't mean you're neglectful. The opposite. You're going to be more attentive because it's for Krishna. But so that's the art of work. Prabhupada calls it the art of work. Doing whatever you do for Krishna, even when there's pressure. You think it's impossible or possible?
For me, when I'm talking to the people, I practiced a lot, having a nice quality, not to be aggressive. That part worked out for me in the last few months. But the part where I am given a deadline to give a presentation, something like that, next week I need to give one of the presentation, which I need to prepare for 8 hours, more than that. During that span, I don't remember anything other than my task.
Well, then you practice and cultivate attachment for Krishna, and it will come. Where does the ability to do what you're being asked to do come from? So if you're attentive to where that ability comes from, you'll do better. Besides, the stress level will be altogether different. Your performance will be better. We'll see. You step back and, people that you're interacting with that are newer devotees, and, you make a similar comparison. I remember what it was like that when I was, a newer devotee and I didn't know anything about anything. And it was, it was fearful and doubtful, and I didn't know how to make the next step. Now you're at another stage, and it's okay. By cultivation of bhakti, it will come. When attachment to Krishna is there, you think of Krishna, not by some mental adjustment. It's a soul to a supreme soul connection. You can't forget. Fallible entities can forget, and when attachment comes to the spiritual platform, you can't forget. Even if you try to forget, you can't. Like the gopis, they can't. They tried to forget Krishna, they couldn't. That stage can come. It's meant to come. We just continue cultivating. It'll come. I understand what you're saying, and I'm giving a response. Continue to be patient and follow the process, and that stage will come. You're following the process nicely, and it's helping you. I'm sure it's helping you in all ways, so many ways. Human relationships ways, and performance in the workplace ways, and relationships within the home ways, and so many other ways. Continue. Way in the back? Can you go quickly? Wow, he's fast.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. It's a sharing only on topic of Sarita Mataji's.
Yeah.
Recently I started as a consultant in Atlanta. After being a corporate employee, even that dynamics played helped me a lot, but to answer, being more balanced and equilibrium helped me in how we deal with the co-workers and the clients and business, everyone. But the most part is the way we deal a personal relation, as you said, that adds more. and on top of it was prasadam. I took liberty as a consultant to share Nandanandan Prabhu's, whoever know Atlanta temple, his cookies. So I shared those cookies every evening after the day, like the day is very long at work, 5 to 7 something. So co-workers are used to these cookies now. They are eating prasad, and the miracle here is they started coming to temple also now to have the lunch, prasadam and all. So I can say prasadam and the way you respond to them, to their questions, really helps. And they also notice every time you talk in a meeting, the way you deal with them, they notice each and every move what you do. As you rightly said, like they can sense within 50 yards that you are a Krishna Bhakta.
And it works the opposite. If you're trying to be Krishna conscious and you're snap with other people, whoa, I'm staying away from that stuff, whatever that stuff is. I don't know what it is, but I want to stay away. But then it works the other way.
Yeah.
And it's part of attracting people to Krishna, is qualities that are attractive to Krishna attract people to Krishna.
At the same time, it is not like being I would like to state, we need to be very, that's what I've seen in prior role as well. Being humble doesn't mean that we are like a doormat.
Yes, correct.
So that actually I learned with my experience. We need to be standing towards words and influence them in a way where they can understand. That's what I learned in this journey.
Well, her point specifically, she's got a presentation to make, and it's high demand, and it's going to be stressful. And she's got to be full court press prepared for that thing, and thought of Krishna is somewhere else. We'll do it later after this presentation is done. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So in the lecture, what you are giving right now, just before, you are telling during an adverse condition, it is very hard to remember.
Yes.
Because our mind will facilitate on the bad condition of our body. So could you please give us some light on how to remember him, just in case when we are going through some health issues or any bad adversaries?
It depends on it depends on the circumstance. It depends on the severity of the health issue and the adverse circumstance. How to respond so that you remember Krishna. But a simple procedure, real simple, step back from the circumstance, go into I call it a reflective space, mode of goodness space. Now you're in a detached space, you're going through something, but you're detached from that something you're going because you're different than what you're going through. That's going to pass and something else is going to happen and then something, but you're the observer of that thing. In that reflective space, mode of goodness, ask yourself, what's the best way to serve Krishna? Or ask Krishna, Krishna, what is the way that you would be best served by me in this circumstance? You put me in you've authorized this circumstance, not like he wished it, but with his sanction, here's the circumstance. What's the best way I can be of service to you? You may not have an answer, but the mood of service protects you from being reactive to the circumstance. The knee-jerk, I feel something, and you do that something without even considering the consequences, what to speak of, will Krishna be pleased by it or not? Shall we do the sequence again?
Yeah, it helped me. For the example what you have given, it helped me in understanding that.
Step back, go into reflective space, mode of goodness. Where's Stira? Is she here? Oh, yeah. Mode of goodness. And consider, from that mode of goodness space, what's the best way, or what are some of the appropriate ways for serving Krishna in this circumstance? So you've gone from the urgency to the goodness position, and in the goodness position, you're taking a look inside, saying, my dear Lord Krishna, you've brought me to this circumstance. If you practice it, it comes quickly. Initially, it may be a little slow and mechanical, like a rusty gate or something. So, but you practice, it goes quickly. What's the best way to be in service to Krishna? My dear Lord Krishna, you've brought in my path of life this circumstance. What is the best way that I can be of service to you? So now you're in a devotional space. The circumstance hasn't changed at all. It's whatever it is, but you're regarding it in the mood of serving Krishna. And stay with the question, even if you don't have an answer. Then you consult others, but with the purpose of what will be pleasing to Krishna. Not how you can get what you want, but what will be pleasing to Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
In the back here.
Maharaj, as a parent, when we have to choose activities, what we want our children to learn, we choose different activities, either some kind of sports or some kind of cultural activities. So they are really not like direct devotional activities that they're learning outside. So what should be certain criterion, out of this vast array of activities that they can learn?
Well, if I was a parent, it's multiple things, not one thing. There's a very nice purport in Bhishma Dev's instructions to Yudhisthira, Canto 1, Chapter 9, where he speaks of training. The Guru was training the brahmachari. And he's looking for what's the basic character is something that all students, so from parents, basic character is something that all children, it's my responsibility as the parent to pass on. Now, how to do that is not so easy, but I know it's my duty, and that's without question. At the same time, I'm contemplating, as the teacher of the student or the parent of the child, what's this child's nature? Some are inclined this way. Some are inclined that way. And Montessori teaches at different stages of development. There's a tendency to be more auditory or tendency to be more visual. And so I'm tuned into the nature of the student or the nature of the child. And what is their nature? And providing resources according to nature. And the character development doesn't get pushed to the side. It's just, now how do I then, based upon those kinds of things, there's certain lines as a parent or as a teacher, I'm not okay with crossing. And even if the child is inclined to cross certain lines, I explain in our family, this is a value that we have, and here's why. Do you have any questions about the why? This is a value that we have. Let's say being vegetarian. I mean, I'm not supposing that's a problem in your situation, but just there's some lines we don't cross, but we don't just put our foot down and say, but explain why. And then once the why is understood, then it's a value that even when you're not around, the child, as a child and as a grown-up, is more likely to continue because it's a value and they understand why. And then other, let's call it extracurricular activities, I think that's what you're asking about, depends on the nature of the child and also with some boundaries. Some lines we just don't cross. Yeah, but other kids are doing the da-da-da-da-da game. And our family, that's not something that we're okay with, and here's why. And whatever it takes to, to become learned why, explain the why. And here's what we do instead. Is it clear why we don't do that and why we do these other kinds of things instead? So you're discriminating about what because you're clear about the why. On the value side, and then the nature of the child. Let the child grow according to their nature. Maybe you were one, maybe not, but I've met many adults that got into a career because mom and dad said you'll make a lot of money if you get into that career. They don't like the career at all. They're making money, they don't like the career at all. And it's too late. They can't do a U-turn and go back and redo their education. They're stuck. So, read the purport. The principles are set down. I'm just embellishing a little bit.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Now, children are playful, and they're maybe attracted to something that's just playful and not really so much their nature. And an intuitive parent needs to make a distinction between the playfulness of the child and something that's more intrinsically their nature. But, a loving parent will have a sense of that, and they'll nourish what is their nature. And boys and girls are different too, without the detailing. Parenting is a complicated thing. I leave it up to you. Something else? So, two over here.
Guru Maharaj, as I was chanting yesterday, the first 32 rounds were very smooth and free-flowing, and the second half was quite challenging. And at that time, I was contemplating a point like, what is the role of acceptance when I am performing my japa?
I'm listening.
Because there are several layers of that acceptance, like acceptance of my nature, acceptance of my situation, and then comes the real point of accepting or receiving the holy name. So when I was trying to chant and my mind was bringing up several things that has happened, and I was acknowledging them, and when I acknowledged it, I was able to move forward, chant much better. But if there was some resistance within me, it was difficult to focus on the holy name. So that's why my question, like, what's the role of acceptance when I sit down to chant?
Well, the expression, what is the role of acceptance, can mean different things to different people. So I want to be careful in giving a response, knowing that it can mean different things to different people. What's coming to mind first and foremost is Krishna's practically first instruction, and that's tolerate. And it's elsewhere, tolerant more than a tree, tolerate. And tolerate that can be a type of acceptance that says, it just is what it is. And I don't have to, using the word that you used, acknowledge it. Like I don't have to really invest much consciousness or conscious thought in. Like last night on our way home, it started to snow. So it started to snow. I'm acknowledging it started to snow. It's not a big deal whether it snows or doesn't snow. So acknowledging just gives freedom for sat. The role of acceptance is in one sense just tolerating. I don't become unconscious to become Krishna conscious. I just become conscious of sat. And I may be aware of different things that are going on in the realm of asat, including my mind. And I just don't pay much attention to it. In that sense, acknowledge it. In that sense, tolerate it. Or other features of duality that are out there, like the snow or hot or cold. So your question is very broad, and I guess it depends on the application of your question, how to respond to it. So, you want to add to your question, or that's good enough?
My question is more to narrow it down. What should I be really fixing my mind on when I sit down for chanting?
The sound. Real simple.
Irrespective of what's happening.
Irrespective.
Yeah.
Now, the mind some stuff is going to go on. In your home, in the workplace, in the day, in the past, and the internal, external and internal. And the attention, the faculty of awareness and attentiveness goes to the name.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Maharaj, the soul is source of energy to the body, right? And when we become old, the body won't cooperate, the energy levels goes down. So I had this question for a long time, like, is that the energy levels provided by soul will be diminished, or how we can understand that, or it's something?
Your voice got garbled and I couldn't follow what you said. I'm sorry. When the body gets old, the soul is the source. Don't repeat the first part. Do the question part again, please.
Okay, Maharaj. So when the body becomes old,
The body becomes old.
and the energy levels when the will also be fall
Energy
down,
level goes down.
body won't cooperate. So after being said that soul is a source,
After what?
after it is being said that the soul is a source of energy to the whole body, so my question is like, is that energy levels provided by the soul will be diminished gradually, or how we can understand
Are
that?
you saying as the body gets old, the energy level of the soul gets down? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes? There's the energy of the soul when one is youthful, and then there's the energy of the soul when one is adult, and then there's the energy level of the soul when it gets old. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, Maharaj. How we can understand this matter and spirit?
Well, it's covering. It's not the energy level of the soul goes up and down. So just hit the delete button on that option. There's the garbage can. It goes over there. So if that's not it, then what is it? Consciousness moves, just like the consciousness of a baby, the consciousness of a young boy. It's conditioned by the body. the consciousness of a young man, consciousness of an adult, the consciousness. So, conditioning is moving the degrees and the types of covering of the soul. Not the soul becomes more or less energy or energetic, energizing. The soul is just energizing at any stage, it's unchanging. The covering changes, and so our experience changes because we identify with the covering. And souls that are like Srila Prabhupada, he had so much energy. It took 4 young men to keep up with him, and they couldn't keep up with him. Although he was, 3 or 4 times their age, because his consciousness was so free. Somebody was just sharing this with me. I think it was Tamahar and I was with Tamahar in Alachua, and he had one of the devotees that's in Hawaii is Shrutakirti, who was with Prabhupada's servant. He said Shrutakirti told him that Prabhupada liked varieties of foods, but he would eat very little. And sometimes he would eat a lot of one thing. But, rare. It was just, he liked to eat what he liked to eat. He didn't pay too much attention to what doctors said. He liked to eat what he liked to eat. I mean, he was aware of limitations, but although he was elderly, his energy level wasn't. But the rest of us were not liberated souls like he was and is. So those that aren't liberated souls, the bodily condition, little boys like to play. Little girls like to giggle. And, little bit older boys, they like to play sports. And little girls it's with the body. Not variations of levels of energy of the soul based upon the age of the body. No. Okay. Looks like we're done. Where? Oh, okay. Look at him run. Whoa.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is my long-term question, but it's not directly related to the class. So, this is about the 6 Goswamis. From the picture, they all look identical. And is there a way, if you could help me to understand from the left to right, who are who?
No. Only by their activity. Do different artists portray them according to their activity. But we don't have, other than Rupa Goswami in that one painting where he's writing, looks like a line drawing. Other than that, I'm not aware of any artist that captured, they could have, should have, but I don't know of anyone that captured, this is what Rupa Goswami actually looked like. So I can't say.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's more based upon activity. Over here, come. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. We're going to end with this one, and hopefully we'll wrap up.
So you said that Prabhupada didn't like rock and roll for Krishna consciousness Kirtan, right?
That's what I was told. That's what Hari Sori told me.
So I was thinking, like in rock and roll, there's a lot of shouting, right?
A lot of shouting.
Lots of shouting. And I've always been told that when we chant or when we do Kirtan, we should be crying for Krishna. So
That's not what he didn't object to the rock and roll because there was shouting. It was the mode of nature that was inspired by that type of music. That's my understanding.
I see.
You know, the guitar, all that, and then the drums, and passion incites passion. Now, there's kinds of dancing that Prabhupada also didn't like in Kirtan, and he would. At least I wasn't there when he did it, but I've been told over and over again that he did it multiple times. He'd hear, and he'd come, or he would tell somebody, stop the Kirtan. He liked Kirtan, but he liked Kirtan done in a certain way. Now, this wasn't a rock and roll way, but it was some other way that was not pleasing to him. So there's different anecdotes of his stopping Kirtan specifically and saying, don't do that. In terms of dancing, also, don't do that. The not so much melodies, but invented mantras without going into the detail. And he didn't like the Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. He was specific about that. So there's a Kirtan Standards Committee that did careful research. That have people from, the liberals and the conservatives and the moderates on that committee. And they studied what Prabhupada said and came out with some standards based on, and with the anecdotes of, these are the examples of what Prabhupada wanted. So, Kirtan should be Utkirtan, but not deafening.
Because it should be done for Krishna's pleasure, not our pleasure.
Yes. Exactly. And so somewhere, what was the standard of what's Krishna's pleasure? Prabhupada gave us, Kirtan-wise, he gave us some standards. How to dance. How to sing. How to play musical instruments. The sense that I get from that committee's work is one of the things that Prabhupada was concerned about, just like in the very, very beginning, before we knew anything about anything, he was telling us about Mayavadis. And we were wondering, what's a Mayavadi? Because we hadn't met any Mayavadis. And one devotee in Bombay told me that they had asked Prabhupada, what's a Mayavadi? Prabhupada said, I wasn't there, but this devotee said, Prabhupada said, take anyone who's a Hindu, scratch a little bit and you find a Mayavadi. Because it's all one, but he was very specific because he knew it would protect us later on when the proliferation of Mayavadism in different brands would become more prominent. So we were inoculated before we got into the disease-infested place. And similarly with Kirtan, because of the Apasampradayas, one of the things that they did is they would invent Kirtans. And rather than the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And Prabhupada was cautious about that because the devotees were curious and they'd go here and go there and go somewhere else and hear a Kirtan style and get attracted to the Kirtan style and bring it into ISKCON. And this is my understanding from this committee in particular, but Prabhupada was concerned that we not become influenced by the Apasampradaya folks, because they like Kirtan, but it leads to something other than Krishna Bhakti. So he wanted to protect us. He didn't want to micromanage us. He wanted to protect us from deviation that would take us off a cliff. And we were innocent, and he was protecting us like a father protects the mother duckling protects the little ducklings so they don't get run over by a truck or something as they're running here and there. Just a last one time on this note, you've been in Mayapur before? Yes. So you know where the Lotus building is? Where Prabhupada's quarters are on the second floor? So previously the temple room itself was just below that. There wasn't anything else. There wasn't now where Radha Madhava are today. It just wasn't there. It was just field. So I was in that little park where the big tree, and they have tulsis out there and some flowers around the boundary and this fence. So I was just out there chanting Japa. And I saw this group of kirtaniers come in, from the right-hand side, come into the temple room, come before the deities, and I'm out there just, pacing, chanting Japa. And they started kirtan. And it sounded nice. And then after some time, maybe 5 to 10 minutes only, they were wailing and rolling on the ground and crying. And I saw Prabhupada came to the balcony. He heard it just for a bit, and he knew exactly what it was Upper Sampradaya folks. And he called his servant and told the servant, get them out of here, immediately. So when Prabhupada says, get them out of here, you get them out of here. So they came running down, and 4 or 5 big, strong guys, and they picked them up and took them to the door and sent them out. And as they were walking out towards the gate, they lit up their bidis and started smoking. And, they were in a ecstatic rolling on the ground in front of the deities. Kirtan after 5-10 minutes. Prabhupada knew that just from the sound of the kirtan, without seeing what they were doing. And he wanted to protect us from that. Now there's kirtan style that starts there, and we may not even know where it goes, but he wanted to protect us from that. He wanted a kirtan style that was utkirtan, but, protected utkirtan, not the other kind. We had a loving father and loving uncles that want to see our protection and well-being, spiritual well-being also. This kirtan group that was singing last night, really nice. Very soft during the yagya, respectful, and then stopped when the mantra started, and then again, and very attractive melodies, standard ISKCON melodies, so really nice. Nothing to worry there. But if it starts getting into showmanship and all the other kind of thing, it's concern, cause for concern. I forget what the Kirtan Mela in Mayapur. It started nice, and then it grew, and then it got into the showmanship thing, where I wasn't there, I was doing other things, but I heard from maybe half of our GBC, they were really disturbed at the nature of what was going on. How they were singing and how they were dressed and how they were carrying on and their social conduct, and they wanted to put a stop to this because it was going in an unwholesome direction, not in a dissimilar manner, in a similar manner that Srila Prabhupada expressed. Now those persons don't carry the gravity and power. Can you sit still? Thank you. They don't carry the gravity that Srila Prabhupada said when he would say, stop. It would stop. But there's concern, as our spiritual master expressed concern. So, it doesn't mean every time somebody says, I have a concern, we have to panic or something, but there's a role for youthful enthusiasm, and there's a role for mature guidance of social and devotional conduct. Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundara Ki Gaur Premanandi. We're done. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.